Alam mo ba, bakit ganyan yung Bitmoji? Kasi ang topic ko today is correlation. So, relationship squad. So, good day everyone and welcome to another lesson for our statistics and probability class. So, our lesson for today is correlation analysis. This is the introduction to correlation analysis. Our chapter 6 is correlation and regression analysis. We have three main objectives, and that is to illustrate the nature of bivariate data, construct a scatter plot, and then to describe the shape, the trend, and variation based on a scatter plot. So before we start, Sir Francis Galton has a question for you. How much do you think you resemble your parents? Sir Francis Galton was one of the first scientists who investigated the relationship of variables within the context of studying family resemblances. Galton's disciple, Carl Pearson, further worked on this topic through an extensive study on family resemblances. So what they did is they collected and plotted the heights of 1,078 fathers and their respective firstborn sons when they reached the age of maturity. The two people above, Sir Francis Galton and his disciple Carl Pearson, plotted each height of the father and son in a graph where each dot represents a father and son's height. In this diagram, the x-axis represents the father's height in inches, while the y-axis represents his firstborn son's height in inches. The relationship can be shown using a diagonal line. So we have three possible relationships that occurs in a scatter plot diagram. The first one, the scatter plot of variables x and y, shows positive association, diagonal line raising to the right, which is given by our example earlier. We have the second one. The scatter plot of the variables x and y shows negative association. You now have a diagonal line raising to the left. And then you have the third one. The scatter plot of the variables x and y shows no association. So random dots everywhere. For number one, simply put, the values of y tend to increase as the values of x increase. So meron tayong direct relationship. For number two, simply put, the values of y tend to decrease as the values of x increase. So, kung kanina merong direct relationship, increase and increase, ito naman, habang yung isa nag-i-increase, yung isa nagde-decrease. So, we now have an indirect relationship. And for the third one, if there is a weak association between the variables, then information about one variable will not help us in estimating the other variable. So why don't we have an example to see these relationships at work? Let's consider this table. So the table here shows the data from 30 grade 11 Quezon City Science High School students last school year 2019 to 2020. You have there the student number, and then the sex, the height in meters, their weights in kilograms, daily allowance, usual number of text messages or messages, and then happiness index for the day 1 to 10, where 10 is the happiest. So we have there three questions. The first question, does daily allowance increase or decrease with how happy you are? Second question, does your weight increase or decrease with your height? Third question, does your happiness increase or decrease with your usual number of messages per day? We can see that in each question, there are two independent variables involved. Notice also that in each question, we are looking for increase or decrease. This means that we are looking for the effect of one variable to the other, or in short, the relationship between the two variables. In example, yung una, tinitingnan mo yung relationship ng daily allowance and happiness index. Pangalawa, tinitingnan mo yung relationship ng weight and height. Yung sa third example, happiness index and the usual number of messages per day. So, correlation analysis, it is a bivariate analysis. When we say bivariate, bi meaning 2, that means we are doing two-variable statistics. So yung mga statistics na ginagawa natin before, yung mga measures of central tendency, location, variation, those are what we call univariate statistics kasi we are just doing one variable statistics. So correlation analysis, a bivariate analysis that measures the strength of association between two variables and the direction of the relationship. So correlation is an effect size. And so we can verbally describe the strength of the correlation or yung tibay ng relationship as very weak, weak, moderate, strong, and very strong. So yung mga nakikita nyo dyan, those are the range of values. Pag ang na-compute nyo sa correlation analysis ay 0.19, that means the strength of the relationship is very weak. Pag na-compute mo naman is 0.25, for example, that means the strength of the relationship is weak. O paano pag ang na-compute mo is 1 sa correlation analysis? That means the strength of the relationship is very strong. So the correlation is a unit-free measure of linear association between two variables. In example, clustering of values of the two variables around a line that have a values between -1 and +1. The closer the correlation between the variables is to -1, the stronger is the negative linear relationship. The closer it is to +1, the stronger is the positive linear relationship. And the closer it is to 0, the weaker the linear relationship. So in graphs, we can see the relationships here. If you have a perfect positive correlation, straight line ka, rising to the right. If you have a perfect negative correlation, straight line ka naman, pero rising to the left. And then you have low degree of positive correlation, merong makikita mong pattern, pero medyo kalat, rising to the right. Low degree of negative correlation, medyo kalat din, pero rising to the left. If you have a high degree of positive correlation, kalat pero medyo malapit sila, rising to the right. High degree of negative correlation, malapit sila ng onte compared to the low degree, rising to the left. If you have no correlation, ito yung mga nakabuo ka ng bilog, nakabuo ka ng triangle sa mga graph mo, that's no correlation. Walang relationship. So from these scatter plot diagrams, we can see and analyze the relationship between variables, thus answering any of the questions above just by looking at the scatter plot diagram. So if you have a slope of 0, that means your line is going to be horizontal. That means as your one variable increases, the other has a constant value. Pag rising naman to the right, you have a positive slope, meaning as your one variable increases, the other variable also increases. Direct relationship. Yung last one, you have there a line rising to the left. That means as your one variable increases, the other variable decreases, meaning you have an indirect relationship. The presence of outliers, as seen from the figure, easily affects the correlation of a set of data. So it is important to take the correlation figure with a grain of salt if we detect one or more outliers in the data. In some situation, we ought to remove these outliers from the dataset, especially those that are suspected to poor quality data, and redo the correlation analysis. In other instances, these outliers ought not to be removed as these records may be correct data and they contain information that should not be deleted. In any scatter plot, there will be more or less some data points detached from the main bulk of the data. And these seeming outliers need not to be rejected without due cause. So in other words, pag may outliers ka, pag sa tingin mo merong mali dun sa pag-collect mo ng data or may bias na nakasama, pwede mo tanggalin yung outliers. Pero if tama naman lahat, verified and valid ang data mo, no need to remove these outliers kasi baka meron silang important na gustong sabihin. Wrapping up, correlation analysis, it is a bivariate analysis, two-variable analysis that measures the strength of association between two variables and the direction of their relationship. So your computed correlation analysis can determine the strength of the relationship And your slope can determine the direction of the relationship. So that is it for Chapter 6, Lesson 1. Times fly by, doesn't it? So I'll see you on our next video for our Chapter 6. Bye! Chill. Pwede kaya tayo correlation analysis? Para makita natin saan papunta yung relationship natin. Kasi nga, the direction of the relationship.